And so I thought, why don't I start eating properly and like do the work, and then I'll know if it's really because of my mental health or what, I was making it up. I don't know. Like, it doesn't make any sense. I'm so glad I'm making this video because saying it out loud is like, what? Hi, friends. This video is going to be a follow-up to the video that I recently posted entitled Why I Never Upload Videos. So this is just kind of my way of checking in and letting people know I'm fine. And also, I didn't have a problem with talking about my feelings on the internet, and I have never had a problem with talking about my feelings. They're just my feelings. And I, do the best in life when I just accept them. So I feel like I'm probably not the only person who feels that way. So why don't, I just be a person who talks about their feelings on the internet? So I'm going to do that. Yesterday, I decided that I didn't want to, I wanted to put a face on for the video, as like a visual representation of just how fine I am, which as a side note is so stupid. Like, you can be fine and not be wearing makeup. You can be fine and not have like a freshly shaven face as a man, right? But anyways, I wanted to project an image of someone who was fine, to comfort anyone who might be concerned. But honestly, by the time I was done doing my makeup, I just didn't want to do it anymore. So I didn't end up recording. And I thought about recording this as like a talking while I do my makeup, but as a viewer, I sometimes feel like those don't make necessarily, like, you can tell that the person's doing more than one thing. And I just thought, like, if I'm going to talk about, as the title suggests, mental health and girl stuff, then maybe I should be able to like give my full undivided attention and not be like stammering through sentences exactly like I'm doing right now. So this is what I was thinking. I'm just gonna do my makeup and then I'm gonna sit down and do this video. But then I did my makeup and I was pretty much lost all motivation. I really gotta just like turn the camera on when I want to, because when I put all these barriers in my way, like clean your house, get dressed, don't dox yourself, when those concerns are in the forefront before I can even hit record, by the time I clean my house and wash my face and water my crops, I just like don't want to do it anymore. So that's where I was at yesterday. And then the other problem with that approach of doing my makeup ahead of time was I don't have like necessarily a ton to really say, and I just was like honestly didn't know what to say once I pressed record. So I thought, well, why don't I just do my makeup and I'll jibber jabber, and then hopefully I'll actually post this, because if I do my makeup 2 days in a row for no freaking reason, how annoyed will I be? Very annoyed. That's the answer. I have way too much foundation. I'm just getting rid of it on my face now. Way more than I wanted to put on. So this is me getting my face ready for nothing and talking to you, giving myself a distraction, I guess, while I talk a little bit about, my mental health. So I was gonna put these little like factoids in the comments of the video, or in the description of the video, but I didn't, which is great because now I have things to talk about. So a couple things that happened, 2 things I want to tell you about that happened the day that I recorded that video. The subtext here was going to be don't judge, but now it's just really like, let's talk about our lives. So that morning, before my husband went to work, I actually had a conversation with him that went like, hey honey, I think maybe I need to go back on my medications. To which he was like, do what you want, sure. I mean, he received it well. That's not the point of the story. But I had just talked to my husband that morning about thinking that I needed to go back on my meds. And I really want to talk about what's going on in my life of the moment without giving like a full mental health history. So I'm just going to do my best to stick to the here and now. But I was on a couple medications for mental health reasons years ago, and I went off of them probably maybe like six or so years ago. Now, why did I go off my medications in the first place? Honestly, okay, massive like little massive little hyperbole much. Massive disclaimer. I'm just talking about me, and I'm talking about my thoughts and my perspectives. And I think that there is validity in people talking about their experiences in real time, but I want to make it so incredibly clear that nobody should follow my lead. Like, so incredibly clear. Because I've come to realize that, like, I have this thing where, you know, when I talk about things, when I talk about what I'm thinking, people, you know, sometimes think it makes sense. And that scares me because I think a lot of things that do not make sense, and I change my mind all the time. I'm literally in the process of changing my mind about my mental health right now. So I'm so adamant that I don't want people to take me as an inspiration, okay? I'm just talking about, like, my life and what's going on right now and what I think about it right now in the moment. And I am not a doctor, and I am not a professional. The only thing that I am an expert in is me, okay? I'm an expert at being me and living my life, and honestly, I'm not doing a great job at it. So don't, you know, be anybody following me off this cliff that I'm about to jump off of. Okay, now that we've got that out of the way. So, like, I've been on a couple medications for my mental health in the past. And why did I go off of them? A couple of reasons. But basically, I was never fully convinced that it was doing anything. That's the real reason. I wasn't having any, like, intolerable side effects. I wasn't, like, nothing really, no like big major real reason other than I started questioning if the medication was doing anything. And, you know, I have went down a little bit of a, in the last day. I was going to film this yesterday, and I'm glad I didn't, because the extra day to reflect has been helpful. Like, I do wonder if there's some kind of, like, a subconscious, like, I'm putting barriers I'm putting barriers to my own happiness in my way, subconsciously. Like, I feel, and I think that this is really something, because I think I felt like when I was taking my medication, I always wondered if I had done everything that I could. You know, lifestyle, diet, exercise, going outside. I always wondered if I had really herbal remedies, you know, meditation. I always wondered if I had really, like, tried everything. And I really question that now. Like, why was it important? Like, I'm talking about, like, 10 years ago when I first was, like, on my medications and, like, not sure if they were doing anything. And, yeah, I don't really want to talk about that too much, like, touch too much on why I felt like it wasn't doing anything, because that was years ago, and I'm probably, like, an unreliable narrator at this point. And that's, like, the thing with a lot of this stuff. And, you know, I haven't, like, sat down and prepared mentally to talk about my full mental health history, and I'm probably, I don't want to be, like, an unreliable narrator, and I also don't want to get too bogged down in the details of my life. So I quit taking my medications because I wasn't completely 100% convinced that they were really doing anything. It was kind of expensive. Now, yes, I could have gotten it covered by my government because I would have qualified, but I would have had to fill out the form. And fun fact about, you know, people who are struggling mentally, filling out forms, maybe not the most accessible thing. So there are a couple things that have always been tough for me, and filling out forms is one of them, like paperwork, filling out forms, and setting clocks. I've always been this way. I hate doing both of those things. I just don't set clocks anymore. And unfortunately, I still have to fill out paperwork, but I really don't like it. So so, you know, the medication was about $100 a month. We were really kind of struggling financially. Obviously, I should have applied for, like, you know, some coverage so that I could, but I felt like, you know, this medication isn't doing anything. It's just a waste of my time. And I could just be, you know, my diet is trash. And I had, you know, this was when I was on my medications. Like, I was not taking care of myself. I was not doing all that great. And I just thought, like, you know, you can't just take a pill and expect it to solve your problems if you're not going to do, like, if you're not going to do the work. And so I thought, why don't I start eating properly and, like, do, you know what I mean? Do the work. And then I'll know if it's really because of my mental health, or if I was making it up. I don't know. Like, it doesn't make any sense. I'm so glad I'm making this video, because saying it out loud is like, what? But yeah, so I wanted to go off my medication because I wasn't really convinced that it was doing anything. And so, like, I don't recommend this, but that's what I did. And that was a couple years ago. And, you know, there were a lot of contributing factors in that decision. I don't know why I thought that I could talk about going back on my medication without talking about why I went off it in the first place. But there wasn't any, like, big, grand, like, reason to go off my meds in the first place. I just did it to see. I mean, I had been, at that point, I had been on some kind of, like, I had been on, you know, meds for, like, almost, like, 8 years, 10 years. And I think I just wanted to know, like, what my, I think I just wanted to know what my body, like, what my brain would be like without it. I just wanted to meet my, like, unmedicated brain. And, like, was that a good idea? I don't know, but that was just, I guess that's just, like, what I thought. And, you know, that was a few years ago. And over the time since, you know, rolled up in my decision to quit my meds, and, you know, I really, part of, like, the philosophy behind that choice was, it's not that I didn't think that medication worked. It's not that I felt like there was, like, a stigma. It's not that, like, it's nothing like that. It's just, or, like, that I thought it was unnecessary. It wasn't anything like that. It was just, one, the feeling that I hadn't tried everything else. And two, the thought that, yes, I'm depressed. Yes, I'm experiencing this anxiety. But also, like, look at what's going on in my life right now. And I do think that there's, you know, some validity to this. I think that there's some validity to this idea. I think that I do get really frustrated with the notion. I'm not a gatekeeper. People can do what they want with themselves and their lives and their mental health. But I personally get frustrated with the notion that you're just going to, like, take a little pill and that's going to solve all your problems and that's it. And you don't need therapy. You don't need to journal. You don't need to meditate. You don't need to eat healthy or go outside or have exercise. You know, like, I really, and I don't know if anybody's even saying that, you know, but I think that and certainly not, like, professionals. Everybody, you know, I'm, like, taking care of yourself to feel good is kind of pretty fucking obvious. But I thought that, you know, maybe if I look at what's going on in my life and I see how unfulfilled I am, you know, I'm not living up to my potential. I have a career that I don't feel very great about. I don't, you know, I'm in a place in life that I don't feel great about. Like, you know, with the exception of my marriage to my incredible husband, there was a lot of, like, puzzle pieces in my life that were not necessarily falling into place. And the idea that you would be, you know, frustrated and at a dead end career and purpose-wise, and to be, I heard this quote recently. Is it Maya Angelou? There's no greater agony than a story untold. And I had these stories that I wanted to write and all these creative impulses that I felt like I had to stifle for whatever reason. And I just thought, like, of course you're depressed. Of course you're, you know, living in anxiety. Like, your life is not serving you. Like, these are warning signs. These are, like, the alarm bells that you need to change something in your life. This isn't an alarm bell that you need to go, you know, pick up a prescription. This is what I was thinking. And I do, you know, for the love of God, nobody stopped taking their medication after hearing this, right? But I think that that's, like, what I was thinking at the time was, you know, and honestly, at the end of the day, I realize now that in some ways it was really just, like, thought self-harming behavior. Like, this idea of, like, I don't deserve happiness unless X, and if I'm not, you know, writing, then I deserve to be miserable. Like, what? You know? Like, I don't know. I don't know. But these were the thoughts that were going through my head, that I shouldn't use like a mental illness diagnosis or a medication as a excuse to, or like as a reason to not an excuse, but as a reason to not be happy. I should, and if I looked at like the real reasons in my life to be unhappy, it was like, of course I'm unhappy. And I don't really think that it's because of a chemical imbalance. Like if I look at like the, what's going on in my life, it's like, yeah, of course, there's tons of stressors prior to COVID. There was tons going on, plenty of reasons to be experiencing depression and anxiety that wouldn't just be like a simple chemical imbalance. So to me, like the idea of going on medication when it was so clear that like the elements of my life were not in harmony, it was just like, why? Like I'm just introducing this chemical that's affecting my brain in like a way that I don't understand. And I'm not convinced it's doing anything for me. And I just wanted to get to know like my unmedicated self. So I went off my meds. And I don't know if I got worse after. Like I really don't know, because I proceeded after that to have the worst year of my life. It's like 2018-ish. And, that's just like a whole life story in and of itself. But there was just lots going on. And I had, every reason in the world to be not living my best life from a mental health perspective. I would say that I went off my medications and I didn't notice any significant change. I would say that that's sincerely my takeaway. So I just stayed off of them for a while. But I feel like lately I've been living my life in hard mode. Like I'm spinning my wheels here. I feel like, like I had this belief that I needed to get the pieces of my life in order, and then we can like consider if there's like a chemical imbalance going on. But, and I also know how silly, right? How can you even get the pieces of your life in order if you are having such a hard time? But I mean, they weren't in order when I was medicated. So like I was, I felt like, what is this even doing for me? So I went off my meds for a few years. And I feel like I've been living the last couple of years in search of like this missing piece, like this skill, this mindset, this self-care routine, like I feel like I've been looking for this missing piece that will put it all together. And now I'm starting to wonder, what if the missing piece is serotonin? So I am considering going back on my medications, and I do have an appointment with a new doctor. I haven't had an actual doctor for a while, but I have an appointment with a new doctor in April, and so this will be discussed. Now, on to the second thing that I wanted to talk about. So yes, I talked to my husband about wanting to go back on my meds, and then I filmed that video. And then that very night, guess what happened? I got my period. To any of the men watching, this is not going to be graphic. You do not need to click away. If there is a single fucking woman in your life, and there definitely is, you can hear about this. I mean, obviously leave if you want to, I don't care. But this is not going to get graphic. You can stick around. So I got my period. And I was going to write that in the description of my video too, like little bit of facts about that, that you didn't know about this video. One, I talked to my partner about going back on medication that morning. And two, I got my period that night. PMS is a bitch, teehee, LOL. But the thing is I don't want it to be like a teehee, LOL, because I can't do my eyeliner and talk. What are we thinking? What am I thinking here? Okay, eyeliner done. So I didn't want to write something in the description either, though, that was like, oh, and then I got my period, teehee, being a girl sometimes, because I'm only going to speak for myself here. But if we're turning on cameras and having emotional stress cries, and that's like a feature of our lives, and then we have our period and we're like, haha, periods, LOL. Like, I'm a person, you know? Like, I'm not just a woman. I'm not just a fucking baby factory, you know? I also deserve to, like, go through my monthly cycle and not feel like I am losing my entire mind. And that's the real thing that I want to talk about, and probably the real reason that I decided to make this video, because I'm being kind of selfish in that I know that there's lots of people on the internet and they have experiences that I don't, and I want to hear about them, because I know I cannot be the only woman who feels this way, and I want to know what you guys think, and I want to know what you guys did, because we all have our own, you know, variety of PMS symptoms. I have to find this eyeliner cap. There's like, we all have our own wide variety of PMS symptoms. But back when I was going through my own mental health journey, struggle, it's not a journey. Back when I was really, really struggling with my mental health, when I was, you know, 18, 19, 20, those years when this mental health issues became a part of my life. During that time when I was like, you know, dealing with the symptoms and trying to figure out a diagnosis and trying to get medication, you know, counseling, like trying to figure out what to do about me. During that chunk of time, I have a good friend who has the same diagnosis that I have, and she mentioned to me, I was probably about 20 at this time, 19, 20, and she said, whenever I'm on birth control, I'm always like at my best. And I was like, well, that's really interesting. And I had been working with a psychiatrist for probably a year and a half at that point. I only saw him every 6 months or so. But I'd seen him only like a couple times. And the first time I saw him, he gave me these bubble sheets that was, you know, a chart for every day of the month. And you chart your moods. And that's what we were doing to arrive at a diagnosis before I got mine. And when my friend mentioned this thing about being on birth control and how she was always better when she was, I thought, oh, that's like really interesting. And I looked at the charting that I had been doing for the past year or so, and I noticed that all of my like really rough emotional days were in like the week or so leading up to my period, maybe 2 weeks ahead of time. But like the week or like the PMS time, that was when. I was also seeing like just a regular family doctor who was close to the college I was attending. So I had an appointment with my family doctor, and I mentioned this to him. Hey, I noticed I've been charting my moods with my psychiatrist for like a year, and I've noticed that it really seems to be the worst. My moods are really the worst, you know, leading up to my period. And I mentioned this to him, and he absolutely brushed me off. And, you know, I said, I think I might have like PMDD. And I did the research, and it was just like, yeah, this like, and I printed it off. I came with all my shit, you know. He was just like, you know, there's no way of knowing, is basically what my doctor said. He said, you know, the only way that we could even figure out if this is even, he seemed to think there was like, he was so, he didn't think that going on birth control was going to do anything. But he was happy to write me a prescription, so he did. And I think he just thought that I was lying and wanted to have like sex with a non-existent boyfriend, but whatever. I'm still glad that doctors are writing prescriptions for birth control when girls ask. He wrote me the prescription, but he made it pretty clear that he didn't think it was going to help with my mood at all. And he said, you know, the only way that we could really diagnose PMDD is we'd have to, you know, your hormones, we couldn't just test for it. It's like really hard. We have to do multiple blood tests and throughout your cycle, and it might not even show up that month. And so he was really, really discouraging. And I realized when I was preparing to make this video that like, and then I left it at that for over 10 years. I was like, oh, like one random doctor told me that, you know, PMDD wasn't worth looking into. And so then I was like, okay, like that's so bizarre to me, but I guess I just, you know, I was looking for answers and I didn't want to fight. But I never felt like the diagnosis that I was given felt right. I never felt like it described me. It's why I don't really use it, because I don't really know. But it's not because of a stigma or anything like that. I just think it might not be the best representation if I'm misdiagnosed. I would often have periods of my life where I would be, my mental health concerns would be particularly acute, really feel like I was losing my mind, consider going back on my medications, this is not something new, and then I would get my period. And normally when girls are excited to get their period, it's because, you know, they're sexually active. And I wasn't even sexually active, and I was just for me, getting my period was so relieving because I knew that I wasn't fucking crazy. Because they're, you know, not all the time, but a lot of the time in the days or weeks leading up to my period, like, I feel nuts. Like, I feel like I'm coming unhinged sometimes, and I know I act like I'm coming unhinged. And I've been off birth control. I went off all of everything at the same time. And birth control was part of that philosophy. I just felt like, you know, I'm not familiar with my, like, unregulated brain, I guess, and I wanted to know, you know, and there were, like, there's lots of reasons that women would want to go off birth control that don't have to do with getting pregnant. And those, you know, reasons were kind of at play. I'd been on it for 8 years, and I loved being on birth control, to be honest with you. I thought it worked great for me. This is not an endorsement, though. I have a really big problem, actually, with women taking birth control and not knowing. I mean, it's hormones. Editing me here. I went on a little micro rant here, and I think it's important, but I don't think that I was very clear about what my point was. So obviously I don't have a problem with women taking birth control. They should take birth control if they want to. I have concerns with women being prescribed hormonal birth control without there being consideration made about the kind of effects that it could have on your mental health. And if you are somebody who has never really had to think about that sort of thing before, if you've always been in a pretty good place with your mental health, I'm not telling you don't go on any kind of a hormonal birth control, but I will tell you to pay attention to how you feel afterwards, and if it really has a negative effect, listen to that, because I know girls who have lost, like, years of their lives to, you know, mood disturbances because they were on birth control. And as someone who's been struggling with this crap for a while, I just think it's really bothersome that there could be women out there who are having their lives put in shambles first over something that their doctor didn't necessarily mention to them, or something that didn't even occur to them, because taking hormonal contraceptives is so normalized now. So for me, like I was just saying, I've had great experiences on birth control, and I'd like to get back on it. But for the same reasons that I've had a good time with it, I also would really, really advise caution. Pay attention to your inner workings, and also, not a doctor, but it does particularly concern me when women try something like Depot, or like the shot, or like an IUD, like something that's gonna be in your body for a long time, and you've never done any kind of hormones before. To me, that's shocking. It's shocking to me that a doctor would give you a full needle with it. Sometimes there's no other options. I understand that in some parts of the world, but if you have the choice of like a daily pill, and that's a good option for you, I really suggest you try that for a couple months just to see how your body even tolerates this sort of thing before you go and give yourself an injection that you can't really undo, or spend all this money on a hormonal IUD. What are they called? Hormonal IUD. I think that's what it's called. Anyways, just something to think about. I'm not your mom, but just from talking to other girls, this is my PSA to women everywhere, I guess. But for me, it was better. Like, I was better when I was on birth control. And I've been off of it for like 5 or so years, 3-4 years. And the main reason that I'm not on it main reason, I just need like a doctor to write me a prescription again. And it's not hard, but like I said, I just don't have a medical doctor at the moment. I did, and then he's doing Doctors Without Borders for the last few years, which is great for everyone except me. So I just need a new doctor. I have an appointment on the phone with one in April. That's what we're going to talk about. Is I want to go back on birth control, and I want to talk about PMDD. That's what I want. I just realized 2 things. 1, I didn't do my eyebrows, and 2, I didn't tell you what PMDD actually is, although I feel like people can figure it out from context clues. But it stands for like premenstrual dysphoric disorder. But it's from my research, it's basically just really real severe PMS for anyone who wants to look into it. But that's basically the video, guys. I had an emotional stress cry earlier this week, and then I decided that, like, I never like it when something like that is the last video on my channel, because I never want like a newcomer or somebody in my personal life, like a family or a friend member, I would never want them to come and have that be like the first video they watch and be like, oh my god, is she okay? So it was important to me to get something up, and I just wanted to, you know, like I said at the beginning, I just wanted to talk about mental health because I'm so comfortable talking about mental health. It is so free of stigma for me, and it always has been. So I am completely fine with talking about my experiences. It's occurring to me, you know, I'm really struggling to come up with an outro because I don't have one. And that's why I was struggling to even figure out this video, because I don't really have a full point. I'm struggling. I don't have an outro because I don't have a point. I just wanted to sit down and talk. And I feel like I talked about some interesting, weird concepts about wellness in this video that people might want to comment about. So tell me where I went wrong. What do you agree with? What are your thoughts on the matter? And also, what do you think of this format? I did go back and rewatch most of the video to get, you know, to see if I could come up with a point and an outro, and I'm trying a second time to create a point with an outro, and that it's not gonna happen. So this video was pointless and I don't have an outro, but I do want to know what you think. How much do I need to edit this? Because I think I'm gonna go really minimal on the editing with this video, and I'm relying on you guys to let me know about if the pacing is painful. So let me know if I should edit more. Thank you for being here, and goodbye.